The grooming gang scandal of the UK, or to be more precise, UK's rape gangs, which center on child sexual abuse by Pakistani men, are once again at the center of discussion. The recent social media uproar came after the Labour government refused to investigate these offences. Social media platforms X witnessed an intense debate on the scandal, with British MPs, ex-owner Elon Musk and British author J.K. Rowling started talking about the police complicity and utter failure of the UK administration to deliver justice to the victims of these rape gangs. The case refers to a series of child sex abuse cases in Oldham, Greater Manchester, England, involving the grooming and exploitation of young girls by a group of men, mostly of Pakistani heritage. The case came to light in 2012 and led to the conviction of 9 men for various offences, including rape, trafficking and conspiracy. Musk took to X and criticized the UK's handling of such crimes, calling out former CPS head and current Prime Minister Keir Starmer. In one post he wrote, "So many people at all levels of power in the UK need to be in prison for this." He also called for the release of Tommy Robinson, who is a British journalist who had released a documentary on the grooming gangs and rapes of young women. Renowned author J.K. Rowling also condemned the crimes and questioned potential police corruption, describing the revelations as almost beyond belief. She emphasized that the grooming gangs should be called rape gangs. On X, she wrote, "The details emerging about what the rape gangs, why call them grooming gangs? It's like calling those who stabbed people to death knife owners. Did to girls in Rotherham are downright horrific. The allegations of possible police corruption in the case are almost beyond belief." The term grooming gangs became famous after journalist Andrew Norfolk broke the story in 2011 as he mentioned a pattern of Pakistani ethnic abusers and white female victims in 17 cases of sexual exploitation. Ever since then, there have been reports and articles covering the problem in detail. However, political correctness in administration and to some extent in judiciary too has come in the way of dealing with this problem. The scandal reportedly began in the 1980s in the town of Telford. Girls as young as 11 were picked up, raped, beaten, sold and even killed by grooming gangs or rape gangs for a full 40 years. The victims were thrown from one rapist to another, most of whom were of British Pakistani origins. Reports indicate that these Pakistani men were running rape houses, and as many as 1,000 girls were victims of this scandal in a town of 170,000 people. In another town called Rotherham, around 1,500 girls were raped, abused, sold and bought by men of Pakistani descent. Many victims were gang raped and the abuse went on unabated from 1997 to 2013. In this video, we will attempt to analyze how this barbarism got exposed, the sequence of events and why political correctness protected the abusers and why it has now become necessary for the government to not shy away anymore, deal with the problem and come up with a solution. In 2011, Andrew Norfolk uncovered a major scandal, which he described as a culture of silence that had facilitated the sexual exploitation of hundreds of young British girls by criminal pimping gangs. As per a report from the British Daily Times, for more than a decade, child protection experts have identified a repeated pattern of sex offending in towns and cities across northern England and the Midlands involving groups of older men who groom and abuse vulnerable girls aged 11 to 16 after befriending them on the street. The report identifies prosecutions related to child sexual exploitation back in 1997. 56 individuals with an average age of 28 were accused of sexual violence, abuse, rape and child abduction. As per the Times, out of 56 perpetrators, 50 were Muslims and predominantly from Pakistani background. The Times report created a buzz as now more individuals in the UK started debates and discussions around the grooming gangs targeting women, including young children even up to 12 years of age. However, concerns against grooming were raised even before 2011. Several reports highlight that from the mid-1990s, cases of child exploitation started to surface. A report by Professor Alexis J. revealed that 1,400 girls were sexually abused in Rotherham. The report explains how several girls were sexually sexually groomed, blackmailed, and then passed on among other men for copulation. These girls were then threatened with death or harm to their family members if they chose to report the incident. Journalist Charlie Peters, in one of his Twitter thread, mentions that in 2008, the Human Trafficking Center commissioned a film about the dangers of on-street grooming. However, it was not shown in schools because apparently it showed a relationship between a white young girl and a Muslim man and how the man later sells the girl for sex by several older men. Despite winning plaudits at international media festivals, the film was never shown in schools to young teenage girls, which was its primary intention. Why? Political correctness. According to the report by Professor Alexis J., police had shown indifference while several council members of Rotherham had personal reservations about these incidents as they involved Pakistani men. Acting on such cases would have triggered a racist tag, which officials wanted to avoid. The Times report by Andrew Norfolk mentions how everyone seems too scared to address the ethnicity factor. It quoted Chief Inspector Alan Edwards. No one wants to stand up and say that Pakistani guys in some parts of the country are recruiting young white girls and passing them around their relatives for sex. But we need to stop being worried about the racial complication. Following the J report, the government in 2015 commissioned an investigation of Rotherham Council by Louis Casey. The report noted that the issue of CSE perpetrators was predominantly Asian men and they were scared that would cause a problem. We would tell them that in the forums and they were uncomfortable. Stats on ethnicity were taken out of the presentations. There was resistance to focusing on who the perpetrators were. The Casey report also establishes it as a fact that the majority of perpetrators were Pakistani Muslims while victims were mainly white British girls. Several reports such as J and Casey confirmed the overrepresentation of Pakistani ethnicities, which was ignored for many years. Ultimately, the anger and frustration reached the British Home Office, which commissioned a report in 2020. The report was not conclusive and it stated that the data was poor to make a proper analysis based on ethnicity. However, it did mention that from the present data, the majority of CSE perpetrators in the UK were white. As the grooming gangs have concerned the citizens of the UK and other European countries, a strikingly similar pattern can be drawn from another string of events in India and other countries in the subcontinent known as love jihad. The love jihad are the phenomena of Muslim men luring women from other faiths such as Hinduism and Christianity to convert them has been a controversial topic in the Indian political and social sphere. Over several years, Hindu organizations such as RSS and Vishwa Hindu Parishad have alleged that Muslim men are conducting a love jihad by targeting Hindu women, ultimately influencing the demography. For many, this is a conspiracy theory created from thin air by Indian right-wing organizations to divide communities, but the facts say otherwise. It was the leader of left in July 2010, Kerala CM V.S. Achuthanathan, who alleged that the matrimonial conversion of non-Muslim girls as a big conspiracy to make Kerala a Muslim-majority state. Love jihad was initially alleged to be conducted in Kerala and Mangalore in the coastal Karnataka region. According to the Kerala Catholic Bishops' Council, by October 2009, up to 4,500 girls in Kerala has been targeted, whereas Hindu Janajagruti Samiti claimed that 30,000 girls has been converted in Karnataka alone. Several allegations were charged against the now banned organization PFI for promoting and funding love jihad. It has become a common trend to witness news reports of incidents where a Muslim male had not disclosed his real identity and established a relationship with a non-Muslim woman. Such incidents have generated ire from the Hindu, Sikh and Christian communities who have further agitated against such practices. Multiple Indian states have already legislated a law against love jihad. Hindu protesters have been demanding a similar law in Maharashtra for months now. Although grooming gangs are a major problem in the United Kingdom, it is not entirely confined to the country. Several other nations such as Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Greece and other European countries are reporting cases of the same nature. India was probably one of the first in the global south to voice out against such incidents, but the international community chose to look the other way, just with the case of Islamic terrorism.